Hey everyone, and welcome back to a very special episode of the Creating Synergy podcast, where today we're deep diving into the life of Alf Ianiello, the CEO of CODAN and former CEO of a greater South Australian company, Detmold. So what's actually surprised me in this whole process of interviewing Alf is the amount of people who messaged me saying that they can't wait to listen to this podcast just because of the person that Alf is. His family values, his leadership philosophies are very, very widely loved. And I just wanted to say, firstly, kudos to you, Alf. A job well done. So we start early in Alf's life, where he believes his hardworking parents and his Italian background set the foundation for who he is and the leader he is today. He shares some early memories where he was bullied as a child that actually led him to changing schools, to his elite soccer prowess where he played for Adelaide City in the National Soccer League. It's through these early experiences and learnings that he believes provided him the context on the leader that he wanted to be today. From the defence industry to the automotive industry, all the way through to the CEO of Detmold in the manufacturing industry, Alf's career paved the way for his role today as CEO of ASX-listed company CODAN, where we will explore his leadership philosophy, the culture that he's trying to instill in at CODAN, and he provides some of his own strategies and goal setting for staying laser focused on achievement. We also discuss a global hot topic, which is the impending recession, and Alf shares his thoughts and outlooks on this subject, bringing his experiences in leading through economic challenges such as the 2008 financial crisis. So as I mentioned earlier, Alf is so very well known by his peers as a family-orientated man, and today we'll explore how he manages work-life balance, personal relationships, and mental health and well-being. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Alf Ianiello, CEO of CODAN. So welcome back to the Creating Synergy podcast. Today we have a very great man, Alf, or Alfonzo Ianiello. What do you prefer, Alf or Alfonzo?
We'll stick with Alf.
Alf.
Yeah.
Your LinkedIn says Alfonzo though.
Yeah, no, it depends. I can pick the people that in the time of their life that knew me.
Yeah.
They call me either Alf,
Or
Alfonso, or Fonzie, one of the two. So let's stick with Alf. It's
Stick
a bit
with
more
Alf.
professional.
Done. Sounds great. So current CEO of ASX-listed company CODAN.
Yep.
And former CEO of Detmold for 14 years. Detmold is a huge South Australian business. So kudos on your career. And obviously there's a lot more and we'll go into that. But
Thank you.
thanks for joining us today.
No, thanks for having me.
So just to kick off, I like to go back and sort of figure out who was Alf or Alfonso or Fonzie or who the person is, who the human is behind the CEO. So what do we need to sort of understand about your earliest context to understand the person who's sitting in front of us today?
Yeah, I think part of the fabric is that my parents came out from Italy. So being son of migrants that came here with optimism and hard work, and that's been part of the fabric for a long time. And then, really, my life, a lot of my friendship group is the same friendship group I had when I was 10.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so it's probably, they're the things that form. And sport's been a big thing in my entire life.
Yeah.
Yeah, even up until today through my children. So
Brilliant. How many kids you got?
4.
Four children,
Three boys and a young girl. Yeah.
Perfect. So parents come out for Italy. What did they do? How did they migrate? What did it look like? And how did that influence, the person who you are now?
Well, the parents came out in the 60s. So my dad came out first. My mum came out a year later. So it's just those general hardships of separation. And then they just worked. So I've got an older sister, 9 years older. So I was probably more of an economic birth, make sure we'd paid off the house and had the future planned out ahead. But all I remember is my parents being highly supportive, being very hard workers and being quite tight with their community.
Yep.
We come from a small family. I've married a lovely Italian girl called Maria, and she comes from a large family. So, that was a good thing. But no, I just remember my parents just enjoying the simple things in life.
Yep.
Teaching me the benefits of hard work and education. They were pretty hot to trot on the education piece.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
What did they do for a living?
So my dad worked at Holden,
Yeah.
and then on the weekends he would do roofing or steel work. So he'd probably make on the weekend what he would make 6 months at
Yeah.
Holden. So he worked quite hard. So in doing that, and then my mum was a cook, so she
Okay.
would cook in pubs and restaurants and stuff like that.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Bet you enjoyed the fruits of that as
I
you were
did.
growing up.
Yeah.
So, what influence? You said they're hard on the education part. What influence did they have? Like looking back now, you go, look, if it wasn't for mum and dad, sort of putting me on the straight and narrow, I wouldn't be where I am today. What did that look like?
I think I referenced hard work, but it's more the sort of stoic nature of things. Things aren't going to be easy. You got to work through them.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get free kicks. You got to sort of create your own free kicks.
Yeah.
It was just those sort of simple lessons. Keep your life not complicated.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. Save.
Yeah.
And don't overextend yourself if you don't have to.
Don't spend more than you make. Right.
Yeah, live within your means. Yeah. But I really, if I look back, it's really they're just they're always highly supportive to get better. Right, so they lay some pretty good foundations, but it's just their ability to, when they came here, you can't speak English, so you get treated like fundamentally a second-class citizen according to their stories.
Yeah.
And they just got to work through it. Mm-hmm. So every now and then you got to be humble, have a goal and work towards it.
Yeah, brilliant. So looking back at your younger years particularly, is there anything that you look back on that just makes you smile?
Yeah, it's funny. Some of the things that really make me smile. I grew up in Paynham, and there was a little park next to the big park called Paynham Oval, and that's how we used to refer to them. They had the little park we used to play in, it's called the Rosella Park. Yeah. And we used to play cricket and soccer all day, and the laughs that we would have, and then, you'd go and steal an orange from the next door neighbour to have a snack. And so it's just that whole community feel that we had playing at that park. And we were all from different schools. Yeah. But
just also the local kids in
all
the
local kids, all local kids. And all kids with probably a vowel at the end as well. So and that was good.
Or an S.
Or an S, yeah. Not many S's in our area, but but that still makes me smile. And when you used to line up and pick the teams.
Yeah.
And, what do you do with the last kid? And, so it was always good. And you look forward to the weekends and you look forward to the holidays.
Where were you picked in the bunch?
I was the picker.
Yeah, you were the captain.
Yeah,
100%. You said earlier before today. You said you like control. So
that's right. That's it. Yeah.
So that just doesn't happen these days, does it?
No.
Like the local. It's such a shame. I mean, we were the same. I had a couple of mates around. I lived in a cul-de-sac, and we'd be out all day long kicking the footy around. Yeah, it's a bit of a shame.
Yeah, and then we used to actually. Probably shouldn't say this, but it's not like we had all the cricket paraphernalia, so we used to knock it off from the Paynham Cricket Club. So we had one glove, one pad, one stump, but it worked. So.
Very good. So Paynham Cricket Club will be hitting you up for some compensation now. You mentioned to me also that your younger years, you went through a little bit of hardship, which sort of built some calluses in you, a bit of resilience in you. So can you explain to us?
So I think, I was always a really good student, good sportsman. And when I was in around year 7, started thinking about, school started getting a little bit difficult as I sort of started getting bullied by, and it wasn't probably bullying, it's probably more, this person was just looking for help because I was struggling, but it got quite forceful and actually forced me to leave the school halfway through. So I remember the amount of duress it put on my parents because they just really didn't know how to cope. This is like a foreign concept for them. Yeah. So halfway during year 7, I left school and I went to another school. And we had same thing. A lot of those kids from the park went to that school. So the assimilation was okay, but it left that that really underlying sort of trying to understand when things are happening, why they're happening, and how you work through them. And it probably took me a long time even to sort of be able to have the conversation, because a lot of people that meet me think there's no way this kid in grade 7 could have suffered bullying.
Yeah.
But end of the day, we had to resolve it. I fundamentally had to resolve it, through my own means, because my parents just weren't equipped in that thing.
Yeah.
And they would just say, stop crying and go to school. They were the kind of things. But we got through it, and so I always have a lot of empathy when I see people just either not being able to fit in or work through. So it's created probably a bit more empathy on how I look at other people and whether they require assistance. I've built my own sort of mechanisms over time. And then, probably one of the foundational things, you take a lot of senior guys and me, I'll just talk about myself, but you live your life out your comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
You live your life out your comfort zone. So having some of those early experiences that I had to manage, right, have helped, living your life outside the comfort zone, because it's just not just the wears and tears of life and business, but when you try and push forward all the time, you're always going to embark in an area of what you're doing that you haven't done before.
The ambiguity.
Yeah, so you got to back yourself, and you got to have intestinal fortitude. And I think what some of those instances in my life have created is that intestinal fortitude. And if I go back to your first question about my parents, that intestinal fortitude comes a lot from them.
Grit your teeth.
Grit your teeth. And sometimes learn when to talk and when not to talk. That's another probably key thing.
100%. Looking back at it now, and I know you said it took you a while to talk about it, but on reflection now, do you think that it was something that could have been avoided, or do you just genuinely believe that this child was a bit broken and taking it out on you?
No, I don't. I think the child was probably a little bit broken. I don't think it could have been avoided. So when you actually listen to some of these things happen to other people, sometimes it becomes a level of normality. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's as simple as I just had to do his homework for him. And that was fundamentally it.
Yeah, okay.
It wasn't a physical thing, but just the intensity of always trying to help him to get part. So he was having his own difficulties.
Yeah.
That's the key point.
And it was just taking its toll on you.
Yeah. So
unfortunate. So 4 kids now involved in. You said you were involved in sport with them. I know you're heavily involved in the soccer scene because you played soccer at quite a high level.
Yeah, I played for Adelaide City right up to NPL. I was in the Junior National League for them. Played state soccer from opens to down to the 12s. Then played National Premier League in South Australia for a while until my career really made it impossible to do both. But I got my kids, elder 2 boys are cricketers and football players. My 3rd son's a soccer player and my daughter's a good dancer. So I just love the fact that they get out and do stuff and they push themselves and stay healthy, and they mix with a lot of different people from different demographics.
100%.
And so they're not always bound by the circles of school and their sort of current environment. Yeah, but, you talk about what gives me smiles is watching my kids play sport or my daughter dances. She probably thinks I don't watch her enough, but no, I love it. And I've made a lot of fantastic friends through it.
Yeah, it's funny. I played a lot of sport growing up, and both of my girls are involved in basketball, and so you spend so many years away from a club, the club scene. You grow up in the sporting club scene, and like you said, there's so many different characters, profiles. It's got its own internal politics and everything that goes with it. And then now my children are in a basketball, like district basketball, playing at quite good levels, and I love it. Like I feel like I'm back home, if that makes sense. So I know exactly what you're explaining. Sport for me, and I try to talk about it a fair bit on this podcast. For me, I believe a lot of my success comes from the sporting career that I had. The fact that I was able to mingle with so many different people, set goals, try to achieve them together, set plans, set strategies, all the above. Everyone plays their position. Do you believe that you are where you are today because of your sporting background?
Yep, I think so. I think from a leadership perspective, I was captain from a very young age.
Yep.
So that came with a level of responsibility, and I took it like that.
Yep.
The ability to trust fellow teammates, which you have to do at levels. The just sheer passion to win.
Yeah.
I played in a team for Adelaide City. I think we didn't lose a game 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, wow.
But it wasn't just the fact of winning; it was the dominance of winning, which really excited me personally.
Yeah,
it's probably a bit over the top, but that's the fact of the matter is we like that, and then collectively, setting a goal and achieving the goal. And some of the people I admire the most in this age today are like the Peps, Guardiolas, and even what guys like Ange Postecoglou has done.
Yeah.
The coach of the Collingwood, and Brisbane Lions, take lists that have been around and just make them better.
Yeah.
It's all man management. It's all setting a path. It's all working cohesively.
Yeah.
And that's what sport taught me, right? And I think it's important. And then the other thing that it all comes around, you need really good people. Sporting teams are made up of really good people.
Yeah, 100%. It's building the right culture, right,
that's
of the
right.
club.
That's right.
So, in amongst all this, you went to uni as well and decided that you wanted a career in business. You chose electronics. Why did you go down that path? What did that look like?
To be fair, my tertiary education is quite terrible. My mother always said when I got my degree, she couldn't believe I got it. So I only did electronic engineering because my brother-in-law's electronic engineer.
Okay.
And I just thought it might be a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Quickly, when I started working, I loved the analytical nature of it, but I quickly understood it wasn't going to be for me long term.
Yeah.
So I moved from really hardcore engineering then to sort of technical engineering, and that's more gives you a bit of a marketing bent.
Yep.
And then sort of moved my way through there. But I've got to say, engineering as a foundational course is really good because it just makes you think in a certain way, and I think that's been the benefit in my business
process
career.
type way.
Process type way, but you're either designing a product or you're designing an organisation or a business.
Yeah.
Right? Or you're designing a way to get yourself out of a situation. So if you take the strategic planning concept, a lot of it is just process.
Yeah.
And you just got to think in a certain way. Not to the point where it just distracts you from being entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
But so engineer, I would rate myself maybe 6 out of 10. I was going to say 5, but I don't want to be that mean on myself. But so quite interesting.
But you can see, you can see your two concepts. This is why I like sort of going back and sort of understanding who is the person, because you can see this engineering side, this process side, then you can see this leader that you were in your sporting career and your ability to work with different personalities. Yep. And you said, you mentioned before the Collingwoods and Brisbane's building clubs from scratch. And lists from scratch, it's a human element and it's a process element, and you've combined it together to be the leader you are today, which I dare say is a big part of your success.
Yeah, but the leadership journey's changed a lot. I'm very much a different leader today than I was when I started my leadership journey, and that really started in the US.
Yeah.
And in the US, it was a very sort of aggressive leadership style.
Yeah.
And I think I peaked at aggressive and sort of come off that. Still a hard driver, but probably not as hard as I used to be. So really, when you get to 20 years plus in senior roles, you're the sum of many situations, the sum of many people that you've actually managed. And so I'm probably a bit more wiser now on how to bring the group together.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've been heavily criticised in the past about being too black and white and binary on achievement. So, you try and round that out with the cultural piece. And
Yeah.
one of my earliest managers who promoted me, he said to me, just don't think everybody's like you. Right? So
Understand their perspective.
Yeah, understand their perspective. And that was a pretty good lesson at a very formative time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're all going through that journey. But before we go on to, so that was your US at Chefanaca. I can never pronounce this. But before that, you were at BAE.
Yeah.
And you did a bit of an apprenticeship there, or
yeah, I joined I graduated, and I was lucky enough to be accepted in the graduate program.
Yep.
So with a lot of people that were far smarter than me, but what a place to work!
Yeah.
What a graduate program! Exposure to so much, great people, smart people, great technology.
We had Christine Zeitz on the show. Did you know Christine? She did the same thing. She went through the graduate program, ended up staying there for 25 years.
Yeah, she's been there a while. Yeah,
she's out now, but she stayed there for a long time.
Yeah.
But we've heard the same thing that graduate program at BAE was fundamental.
Yeah, so that started my journey of travel.
Yeah,
that was my first international trips into Asia and into the US. And once I got that bug, I thought, you know what, I'd really like to do some overseas stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where the transition started out of BAE.
So, BAE, how come you didn't decide to stay in the defence world? I mean, like, if you enjoyed it so much, why did you move out?
I made a decision very early on. As an engineer, it's very difficult to be a senior person at BAE.
Okay.
Number one.
Yeah.
A lot of the senior people at BAE are either from England, or they're the commercial guys, because there's far less of them.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so when I started looking at career paths, to go up through the project management sphere, you need a lot of experience, and a lot of those guys are sort of ex-service.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so and then I thought to myself, I wanted to be more on the front end of the business.
Yep.
And a customer engineering role came up with, it was called Britax when I started, another great SA story, and then it was acquired by Chefanaca.
So you've moved there. They're a global automotive
player,
in the traffic light space?
No, they do rear vision systems like mirrors, electronics for cars. Yeah.
So you stayed there for 8 or so years, and in that time you were global engineering manager. So for a 6 out of 10, engineer to become a global engineering manager, and ultimately the managing director. So tell us about your story there.
Yeah, so I was in the US. They got rid of the US guy, and the Australian guys thought, this Alf kid, he's going to be half the cost of the US guy. Let's give him a go. What have we got to lose?
In the global role?
No.
Just as in a
branch management role.
Yeah.
Then I came back and became the engineering director for Australia only.
Yep.
Then I got promoted to the global engineering director. And you got to put in perspective, this was a German company. So very unusual for like a 26, 7-year-old to be the global engineering director. And it took me a lot of time to actually get the confidence to actually sit with my peers and the people that worked for me, because they were much older and much more experienced.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, so it was really tough and to win them over. But, one thing I thought, what, I'm going to grind it out.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep working harder than them.
Yep.
So I sort of tried to assess what my competitive advantage was.
Yeah.
And my competitive advantage was that I understood the tech, and I'll work harder to stay ahead of the curve. So when I used to go to meetings in Germany with like BMW or Mercedes, they thought I was like the assistant. Yeah, because
it's the coffee boy.
Yeah, it's very hierarchical. Yeah. So, and then I was lucky enough to come back and become the managing director.
Yeah, very
of
good.
just the Australian division. So it was around 1,000 people across Australia back then, and did that for a while. And this is a really key point. I worked for a gentleman called Brian Freeborn, great mentor. So I have been extremely lucky in my career that I've worked for very good people that I've been able to learn a lot off.
Yep.
So Brian was definitely sort of one of the first mentors in the business world for me.
Yep.
And then I did that for a while, and then started my journey with Detmold.
What was one of the things that you remember Brian teaching you?
He taught me the absolute passion you need to have about understanding what makes up the numbers. If you cannot sit there as a leader of organisation and understand how numbers come together and how you can influence your numbers, you're wasting your time. And he was an accountant.
Yeah.
And he had a, he was an apprentice, came off the shop floor at Mitsubishi. He's worked his way up.
Yeah.
And then he just had a lovely style about him.
Yeah.
I probably didn't get that from him, but I did. I did that whole rigor about review and numbers and attention to detail. I got there.
Yeah.
From him.
It's often some things. I mean, it's where some businesses go belly up, right? It's just the lack of rigor on the numbers.
Yeah.
Why you though? You said it's very rare. German young Australian kid. What was it about you that they thought? You know what? We're going to take a punt on this guy. In these larger roles.
Yeah, I've got to say, I think in all the roles I've had, I sort of performed well, and I would say outperformed them. Worked really hard. Work was everything. Worked really, really hard, and I had a good affinity with people. I can have a laugh. I can be tough when I have to be, but I can be fair when I have to, and you can have a laugh. I don't take the whole thing too seriously.
Yeah,
that's the key thing, and I think that comes back to where I'm from. You don't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah,
right. So I would get more. I would get more sort of laughs when if I'm in my Italian community, because I'm just not a good handyman.
Yeah.
They don't even care that you're actually the CEO of an ASX business.
Yeah,
it's quite funny that way. But
they pat your hands.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
You got
too soft.
Pen hands. Yeah,
so
pen pusher or something.
But I would say that. And I've always tried to have an ability to push the current state forward. Right. So I've always tried to, set something to push everybody forward and work with everybody. So, I think they're the key. They're the key things.
You mentioned work hard a few times, and I keep thinking sport. You said you busted your ass.
Yeah.
You guys wanted to win, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you can see that ethic coming through your working career. What does working hard mean to you? Is it more hours? Is it just head down, bum up, do whatever it takes, or because you hear these things these days floating around, it's like work smarter, not harder, and all the above. What's your advice in that space?
My thing when you work harder, probably early in my career, a lot of what to do was around volume of work. Yeah. Right. I think as you get more mature, you want to make sure work harder is more about being passionate about what you're doing, and it consumes your thought process for that specific amount of time. Yeah. And you're able to put that passion into making your work better and empowering people around you, right? So work harder is also, when you get a challenge, is that you don't curl up in the fetal position. Yeah. Work harder is that you stand up and say, let's go, guys. Yep. Come on, let's go. So it's like if and then you bring it back to sport. If you're losing in the last 15 minutes, what do? You step up. Yeah. And that's my point. You step up, and that's work harder. Be passionate about it. That's work harder. Bring your team with you. That's work harder.
Discretionary effort, right?
Yeah, and that's my key point.
Do you I love the idea of the stepping up but do you ever concern yourself with potential burnout in this space? Like, you can push and you can push and you can push, and like, how do you manage that?
I don't think about that too much. No. I think when I get home to the sanctuary of my home, I really feel it's a sanctuary. Yeah. And then a lot of people around me really have nothing to do with my professional career, which makes a huge difference.
Allows you to switch off.
Yeah,
100%. So, CEO, Detmold, your career goes through chef vernacular. I hope I can never get that.
Close, it's close, yeah. Yeah.
And then what happens? Where does the tap on the shoulder come from? Actually, we need this young chap to come over to Detmold, run a very, very successful packaging business here in South Australia.
So I got a phone call, and
From the owner?
no, not from the owner, from a board member.
Yep.
And then we just had a bit of a discussion. I met Rodney, and I sort of said to him, "Listen, I've got so much going on at Chef Naka. It's probably a year." And in true sort of persistent Rodney way, we kept catching up for a coffee maybe every month, every 2 months.
Yep.
And then after that year finished, I joined Detmold, and I was the joint CEO for a period of time. I ran all the ops, and the guy ran all the sales, and then that got consolidated into one role, which I took. So it was a long courting process, and it was very, we went from a business that was far more planned, because when you're in automotive, you got long, sales cycles, and you got long contracts, to more, consumer type business, which you learn a lot from that too.
So what did the company look like when you walked in compared to when you left?
What did it look like? It was smaller from a turnover perspective and a headcount.
So headcount when you joined?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
No.
But when I left, it was around 3,000 people.
Yeah.
So I would say there was quite a bit of consolidation in the early days, and we made some tough decisions on performing assets. And then we created a lot of new assets, the moves into the Middle East, the moves into India, Vietnam, extra facilities in China, acquisitions. They just kept going, right? And the journey just keeps going, and we keep getting greater market share with some really good clients. It was quite, I think, I left Detmold having learnt a lot, and also, thinking that I left something for someone else to take to another level. I joked for the first 2 to 3 years that I was probably the highest paid apprentice in the packaging industry. When you're sitting next to a guy like Rodney, he's like the oracle of packaging. But we worked extremely well together.
I know the Detmold family they're a private family, and they can do what they want. But I am Rodney's one of the sort of more successful, one of the unicorn entrepreneurs to have come out of South Australia, right? So I'm actually just really interested in first and foremost, why did he trust you to take the helm of his business? This is the business that this family's put their blood, sweat, tears, and all their risk in, and they've chosen Alf Ianiello to take it to the...
I think when you choose someone, it's always a 50-50 bet. Right? So, it's one thing making a decision that you're looking at bringing in a level of capability or management. But then the trust, I would say, was built over years with Rodney. And a lot of it was through delivery. A lot of it was through also my ability to relate, right? And that ability to relate also comes back to the fact that of my heritage, where we come from a heritage of being highly respectful of certain things, and I think that helped build up the trust. And then we ploughed through the ups and downs of stuff. But again, I speak about Brian about being a significant influence, but Rodney by far would be, behind my old man, would be a huge influence on my business career. And what I'll learn off the guy. But then the passion to succeed is just this is what a lot of people don't appreciate about Rodney and other people of that ilk. Their relentlessness to get to the end goal is something else. Right, and that's why they can create these great organisations that stand the test of time. That's the key thing. It's one thing having an organisation for 5 years, but when you've got it for 60 years, it's different.
It stands the test of time. So what was it like working for this passionate entrepreneur who, is so goal orientated about achieving? How did you, and what did you learn from him?
Yeah, again, I learnt the ability to understand the detail, understand the drivers, understanding that sometimes to get to A to B, you got to go to Z and back. You know, sometimes you have to be unconventional in your thinking. That's probably the greatest thing I learnt from him, unconventional.
Yeah.
And also...
What do you mean by that? Can you give us an example?
Well, the way I liken it, you know, most people, when they look at an issue, they look at it from head on.
Yeah.
Right? And then when that doesn't work, they don't think about... They don't think about the hard way that you might have to get there.
Yeah.
So
the road less travelled.
Yeah, and sometimes those road less travels, it's going to take work, it's going to take a bit of extra thinking, maybe a bit of extra money, but you still get there. So I learned that, and also the ability to link up with... He was I found a very good listener. So he would sort of take other people's views and sort of soak them in. And
when you say the skill set of listening, and then what happens after? Because you can be a very good listener, but then it's just what you do with the knowledge that you've just absorbed.
Yeah, I think you just got to... listening is just another sort of data collection point.
Correct.
And you just then need to make the assessment that is correct for you and for the situation. And you've got to do what's right for the business.
Yeah.
So one thing that we used to talk about at Detmold was that when you're in the decision-making loop, you need to make a decision that's right for the customer and right for the business, but it may not be right for you.
Yeah.
So that's what, you know, I've fundamentally learnt. You know, he had a very good knack of making the right call for the business and the customer, and the customer centricity was absolutely through the roof.
Yeah.
You know, something that I had never experienced prior to my time working there. So customer first, customer first.
What does it mean through the roof? What's an example of where customer was put in front of you or any individual within the business?
I think sometimes you take a longer term view of the customer. So financially, you may make an assessment. We would review the customer metrics prior to the financial metrics. So that tells you a bit.
Yeah.
You know, so quality metrics. And it's all about protecting brand.
Yeah.
It's all about protecting brand and people having trust in the brand. So that's that customer centricity piece. And then to actually push that brand and customer centricity across all your sites globally. So when you know the executive chair is like that, very soon permeates.
Yeah, 100%. Looking back at your time in the Detmold group, what are you most proud of?
I'm proud of the growth. I'm proud of the evolution of some people that we worked with. I'm proud of the mask program that we delivered on. That was quite an exhilarating project.
During COVID,
Yeah, during COVID. But, you know, again, you know, I think the business, although I didn't leave it in a perfect state because nothing's perfect, was probably a bit easier to run after when I left.
Yeah.
And we made things a little bit better.
Yeah.
You got to understand, for guys like me, either you're running CODAN or Detmold, you're a custodian at a point in time.
Yeah.
So as long as during that time that you're the custodian, you leave a positive influence, I think that's all, you know, I think that's a tick.
Yeah.
You know, if your engagement surveys are saying it's a good place to work and stuff, I think that's a tick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you took it from one point to another and there was a fair bit of growth there, right? So you got to be proud. In that sense.
Yeah, but that's all part of it. Though. What I'm saying is, while you're the custodian, if you've improved the current state to a better future state, now could that future state been better? Might be someone else's job to do that,
Absolutely.
and not me. You know, so you know,
you played your part.
I played my part. Yeah.
So, was there at any given time, was there any point where you thought, you know what, I'm not cut out for this, like where you struggling with the role of being a CEO? I mean, there's one thing that I know to be true is that the at this level, it's a sport in its own right? The stress when you choose to lead a business, and especially the businesses of the size that you run, you choose stress. You choose the tough life that it provides. What does that look like for you? How do you Do you ever self-doubt? Do you ever question self? And if so, what do you do to overcome that?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in focusing on the future.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be, we were talking about flying before,
Yeah.
there's always going to be a turbulent flight.
Yeah.
But the turbulent flight doesn't stop you from getting to your destination.
Yeah.
So as long as you're clear on what your destination is, that's what you focus on.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be able to control all the variables that come day to day and all the ups and downs that come day to day. You're not going to keep everybody or your stakeholders happy. But if you've got a very clear mind about where you need to get to, I just take those little stresses just as that.
Yeah.
Right, and be very optimistic in nature. And one thing you need to do, you need to back yourself. So as soon as you doubt, that's not good. Because if people smell doubt, you're not going to push it forward.
Yeah. But surely there was a point in your career, especially early in your CEO role, that you did doubt.
Yeah.
Because I think for me, it's like to say don't doubt yourself is an experience, someone with experience, right? Like you're always going to doubt yourself early in a career.
I guess you doubt yourself whether, on how you're going to get there.
Yeah.
Right. That's the real thing.
Well, using the plane analogy, you wonder if there's going to be a crash, right? Like,
yeah. I think you just got to break things down into small elements and work through that. Don't make something bigger than it is. One key aspect. Yeah. And then you break it down and work it through and try and be organised. And if it's not working, have enough sort of humbleness to say this is not working. Have enough humbleness to talk to someone about it. And I think I was really fortunate at Detmold is that Rodney was a magnificent sounding board because if I hadn't seen it, he's definitely seen it in a long career. Yeah. So you could talk about things. Yeah. And I guess that's the element. And I think maybe that might have alleviated those stresses to say, listen, I've seen this before. I think we're doing okay. You just got to see it through.
So in regards to the now taking over a company that is ASX listed, it's a different world.
Yeah.
What's the differences in the two from a family business to an ASX listed business?
Yeah, I think the mechanics of running a business are the same, right? What you get at an ASX level, it's the absolute external rigor of comms is greater, obviously. You've got a lot of shareholders, and the absolutely intense drive for growth. So most of the line items in a P&L are scrutinised and for quality and to ensure that they are growing. And as soon as you demonstrate that you can't grow it, that's where things go poorly. And then it's the visibility. Every 6 months, someone knows what you made. Yeah. How you went. Yeah. It's like a scoreboard. Yeah. And it's there for everyone to see. And I think that was the element of the role that took me some time to get used to. It's been a great experience. I've learned a lot.
So that scoreboard is something that not only shows the company scoreboard, but your own personal scoreboards out there for everyone to see.
Correct.
How does that feel for you?
Yeah.
Have you had a long lost cousin come and ask for some spare change?
Yeah. No, it depends what scoreboard you're looking at. So if you're looking at the share price scoreboard, that's a collective one. Yeah. So I don't take it too personally. Yeah. And you can't really govern what your share price is going to be. Yeah. Right? So as long as you keep it within a band. The other scoreboard's about on the REM side. That's a bit more visible. Yeah. But I'm lucky most of my cousins are in property and not shares. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I think that's the one thing that would really get me. It's like it's out there. Your wage is out there for everyone to see. Like it's a difficult thing. It's on the annual statement. Like it's everywhere, right? And it just seems to me it's. I don't know if I could ever get used to that. I'm a bit private in that space.
Yeah, I don't think I could count on one hand that if I ever receive a question on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There you
And
go.
like I said,
Maybe that says more about me asking this question.
like I said, a lot of my immediate friendship group,
Yeah.
they wouldn't even know what I do on a daily basis.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's the Italian thing.
Yeah.
Everyone they've gone back to the trade. Everyone's
That's
like,
right.
"Why aren't you on the tools, mate?" So taking over from CODAN, and you took on the role, succeeding, Donald McGurk, who is quite rightly, very well thought of in the industry and being a fantastic leader.
Yeah.
How did it? Was it big shoes to fill taking it on?
Yeah, obviously, Donald's a proven campaigner, all right. And in the world of ASX, one thing I didn't have is that due to the private nature of the Detmold group, people can't ascertain what you've done.
Yeah.
And so that was one key thing. He's actually been a great leader over a 10-year period. But one of the key things was that I joined and took over a company that was very different to what Donald really ran a large Mind Lab division and a comms, smaller comms. I came in as we had completed the two large acquisitions.
Yep.
So the businesses are very different today.
Yeah.
And so, it's not that comparable.
Yep.
Like I say, internally and externally, I'm there to build a stronger CODAN because CODAN is strong.
Yeah.
I'm there to make it stronger, and the guy who takes over for me will make it stronger again.
Yep.
Or person.
It's the good to great model.
Yeah,
right?
that's right. And Donald has been very good over the last 18 months. We catch up monthly and we have a chat about things. So if I have an issue, we're happy to have a chat about it.
Yep.
Yeah. So, he's like I said, he's a very good businessman.
What's actually, before I go into this question, I'm curious. How does a company? I've been looking at the share pricing. How does the company make record profit? This is my naivety here.
Yeah.
In I think 2022 or 2020, 2022, you made record profit, but yet share price goes down. How does that work?
Yeah, because the record profits were made off significant gold detection sales in Sudan.
Okay.
And when you were looking forward,
Yeah.
everything's based on your outlook statement.
Yeah. Okay.
So as soon as you say that the Sudanese market is going to fall off, and that's where you've made all your money,
Yeah. Okay.
your share price tanks.
Okay.
So, and fundamentally, those COVID periods for CODAN were lucrative.
Yeah.
So, we're sort of building off a base of pre-COVID.
Yep.
And we're building off a base with a far larger communications division, and we're building off a base to actually get more predictable revenue, which CODAN hasn't. This is why, like Atlassian and those companies are valued so highly. They got that software as a service.
Yeah.
Repeatable revenue. That's what you really need.
Yeah.
So if you can't actually predict that you're going to have a rosy future, share price tanks.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does the future look like for you? Where do you plan on taking the brand and the business?
Yeah, I think Ianniello can communicate what I've communicated to the market.
Yeah.
So Mind Lab is still a great business division for us. We've really transformed the business over the last 2 years, where 75% of our revenue now comes out of North America and Europe.
Yep.
This is the total group. So we'll continue to focus on growing our comms division in those markets, and focusing on growth, and either organically or inorganically.
Yep.
Again, comes back to the engineering framework. We've got a plan, and we'll just stick to it, and we'll keep knocking it off as we go.
Going back on the share, what is the share price? What does that do to you individually? Like, are you constantly looking at it? Is it? I don't know. I'm talking about running an ASX-listed company. What is it?
What I look at from a share price perspective, the share price now has baseline. So we're either in the top part of the $7 or the low 8s, right? So it's sort of baseline. What interests me is the enterprise value, the market cap.
Yeah.
So at the moment, we're around 1.4 to 1.5 billion. So what interests me is about getting that bigger.
Yeah.
So as we keep growing, and then you go into the ASX levels higher and higher,
Yep.
that enterprise value grows. That's what interests me.
Yeah, okay.
We're there for value creation.
Yeah.
And value creation is just not all about NPAT or EBIT.
Yeah.
Value creation is about having great customers, repeatable revenue, great people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a collective.
It's an ecosystem.
Yeah, it's an ecosystem. Yeah.
So I know you're very passionate about leadership, and you said something earlier that I think we should touch on a little bit more. Where you said I've lived most of my life outside of my comfort zone. It seems like that is your career, right? As you've taken it through, it's a step out of your comfort zone. Why do you keep throwing yourself into that situation where you are? Like, is it at the point in your career, in your life, where you don't know any other way?
That would be true. You know, I've never been a good follower.
Yeah.
Well, big fair. I don't, you know.
Yep.
So, and I guess that pushes me to that situation. I think the whole sort of ability to try and learn. One of the key reasons to leave, you know, I wanted to join an ASX business for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Right. So one of the key reasons to do that was to learn. You know, it wasn't monetary. It was to learn. Now, I could have gone there and got sacked after 6 months.
Yeah.
You know, so, but it's just that willingness to learn and understand the other things. So that's what really drives that out of comfort, just to get better.
100%. Do you believe that it's fundamental to any leader? Like if you're mentoring, I know you do a bit of mentoring. Is that what you say? Looks like you actually have to step outside of your comfort zone here. You actually need to understand where your boundaries are and step outside of that.
I think, you know, my view when I mentor is understand what you're really, really good at and amplify that, and pick one or two things that you don't like doing but are important for you to be successful, and move and action some of those items. So I'm a little bit of an introvert. So when I first started in these leadership roles, one of the hardest things I found is just networking and going to places and talking and, you know, but...
And now you're on a podcast.
And then you're on the podcast and, you know, do presentations most weeks. But it's something that you need to do because it's important for the role.
Yeah. So when you are mentoring some people, what do you see as the common issues that are arising, or the common behavioural traits that are holding people back?
I think one of the common things I see when I mentor people just don't have a path.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, if you have aspirations to be a senior manager somewhere, well, you've got to say it and you've got to have a path to try and get there. If you've got aspirations to own your own home, you need to figure out how you're going to get there.
So lack of planning.
Lack of planning, lack of forward looking. I think they're the largest things. And then a lot of them that got, you know, a lot of the people I mentor are usually in their mid-30s.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of them just lack that worldly experience. So some of the things they're going through are normal. You know, let's just, you write it out and you'll be better for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can we talk on the planning thing?
Yeah.
I know that you're a meticulous planner.
Yep.
Can you help us understand a methodology that you believe works?
Yep.
I'm not so great at it. I plan in my head and then I hope it works out, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that creates some sort of anxiety sometimes because you're like, it's not going the way I need it. Whereas if you can plan it on a page, I feel like that could work. Could you teach us your work?
Yeah. So I didn't come up with this. I was part of tech for a while, and that's where I met people like Donald and Anthony Kittle and other good SA people.
Yep.
And they had this framework where you split your life into personal, your family, and business. So if I sit here today, I'm very, very clear with zero ambiguity on what I need to deliver at work. That's very clear, right? And these aren't just headline numbers. These are just everything else I need to do.
Yeah. So, like, can we just break that down? So, and we don't need to go into the detail, but so we're talking about business. Yep. These are my numbers, but this is also the strategy, and then everything that I need to do as a CEO.
Correct.
within that.
Yeah, so that it could be a 12, 18 month, 24 month horizon.
Yeah.
Very high level. It's just a dot point.
But how do you know? Is it just sort of a brain dump? Like, what do you know that? How do you know what goes on this page?
It's just a brain dump.
Yeah. Okay.
And you got to have a little bit of an understanding of the environment you're in and what you need to deliver.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm very focused on value. So a lot of my stuff about work is around value.
Yeah.
Increasing the EV of the organisation.
Yeah.
And when I talk about sort of my personal stuff, that could range from fitness. That could range. So I'm going to want to run a marathon. I want to lose some weight, which I never do. That's the only goal I never get to.
It's the hardest one.
Yeah. So I might have to just stop eating and drinking for a while. But I might say things like I want to buy another property, or I want to take a family holiday. All that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But that's there because once it's in your mind and in your subconscious, you actually drive activity towards it.
Correct.
Okay. And then when it comes to family, it could be as, I've had kids go through year 12, right? I've had kids prepare for some sporting things. I've had kids entering tertiary education and, things that might pertain to my wife. So I just list it. And so I know that if, for argument's sake, when my kids were going for year 12, I would actually put down what the respective ATAR could be.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then start framing it up with them. They wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Right, but we collectively work together, because they're big years for families.
Yeah.
Especially when it's your first child. As you have more children, it becomes lesser.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's that sort of dot point, right? And those dot points I put in a month. So I actually plot out all the months.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's January, February, March, April, right through to an 18-month period. And I just write in those months things that might be interesting. So, if your kids are having a 21st, I'll put that in there. Or 18th, or you want to go to Italy for a holiday or somewhere else, or there's another milestone that you want to look at. I think it's really important.
How much time would you spend on this?
It's my plane stuff. So I do a lot of flying.
Yeah.
So I've got a folder, and on the front of the folder, there's a picture of Venice.
Yeah.
And my wife and I would really like to own like a holiday home in Italy and sort of retire there. There's 6 months there, 6 months here. So I keep it there because every time I look at it, that's what I think about.
Yeah.
So when I go on the plane, I take it out and it might take 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. But I've got the 10 previous ones behind it. I never drop them off.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's just nice thinking. And sometimes you don't do it. Or you don't actually achieve all your goals.
Yeah.
But then I just reshuffle the priorities.
Yeah. So is it a goal-setting thing or is it a to-do list?
I look at it more as a goal-setting.
Okay.
Yeah. Some things aren't that easy to execute.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, it sounds like I sit here and I go, it sounds like a lot of work, but you can see the benefit and you hear it. This is stuff that you hear time and time again. Plan your life, right? Yeah. And we do the same thing with business, plan your business, understand your strategy. You spend so much time understanding what your strategy is, but yet you don't do it for your own personal life as well.
That's right. And then I think the other thing that I didn't mention, especially at the personal front, is, there's got to be a few health goals, some of the health checks that you got to do and stuff. Because you haven't got your health, you got nothing. Right? Doesn't matter what that REM report says.
No.
Yeah, you need to have your health.
Yeah.
And that's either your physical health or your mental health, but you need to have something.
Yeah. How do you juggle the time though? I mean, the job itself, like CEO role, the job itself takes and consumes so much time. Do you exercise, or is it just like, I mean, some say that 80% of it's all food in the intake that you do. How do you manage that?
Yeah, listen, I wax and wane. I've had times in my life where we used to do ultra marathons and train hard.
Oh, you ran ultra marathon?
Yep.
Yeah, wow.
And ride charity rides to Melbourne and back. We used to ride a lot during the week. Then I've had times in my lives I don't do anything. So now really, I do a few PT sessions, play a bit of golf, but I should do a bit more.
Yeah.
I feel so much better when I do it.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what does your leadership philosophy look like then? I mean, if you are leading obviously a very large company, you plan meticulously What type of leader do you want to be known as?
I just want to be known as a leader that is fair. People trust that they want to actually work with me to make something better, and really educate people to be really optimistic and plan for the future. That's that's really it. I'm always looking for the future, right? And with everything I do, you're just looking for that next thing. So with work, it's a lot of it when you talk about joining an organisation like CODAN. So when you join after a leader's been there for 10 years, you spend a lot of time building trust networks up again, and building understanding, and that's not easy. That takes just time. So most people, if they had to say, what's Alf like to work for, they'll say he's hard but fair. Right, and and he just tries to improve whatever's going on. So, and when I look at the business, everything's got to be in the top quartile. I don't want things not in the top quartile. I want everything in the top quartile. I want everything moving forward, and they need to move forward at a rate that is better than the market. So if your competitor's growing at 5, you should be growing at 7 or 10. So let's not get these sort of safety nets around us and believe we're better than we are. You're right, because the world tells you that in order to be good, you got to be better than your competitor.
You got to put your thumb on the pulse a little bit. Do you walk into an organisation? I mean, when you started 2022, do you walk into an organisation and what's the first thing do you look at? Is it something like what's the culture of this organisation? Is it the performance? What do you look at?
I'm more of an observer.
Yeah.
So I probably did not much for the first 6 months, but I just observed, and I think it's important when you walk into a new organisation, it's not about applying what you've done before. It's about seeing what's applicable to be done. It's a subtle difference, but there's a big difference. So I really just came in and for the first 6 months just listened to people. Right, and try to understand what the core of the business was, understand who the customers were, just really understand the lay of the land. And while you're doing that, you need to maintain a financial performance because you've still got to hit your metrics. But it was more about just listening and learning. And I think, after the AGM last year, that's when I thought learning's
done. I've learned enough.
And now we're going to move on.
So I am interested in the cultural element. I mean, we, as the business that I run, work with a lot of companies on helping them achieve high-performing cultures. What effort do you place? I mean, you talked about the sporting team before and building from the ground up and putting all that effort into creating a great and high-performing culture. What do you look at in that space?
I look at communications a lot. So we've just completed an engagement survey.
So internal communication,
Internal. And the communication for me is just not with my immediate team. I also like going down. So I'll have, I have a lot of executive leadership meetings, but I also have senior management meetings. So everyone who reports to the exec, and I'll just talk to them about strategic intent, things that are happening in the business, making them a bit more future-proof. And so they can understand style, create some touch points into the business rather than always everything coming through hierarchy. I think that's one of the largest dangers of business is when the leadership is so focused on hierarchical communication. You got to have your data points from a variety of areas. So, for me, communication, understanding what's going on, providing a level of feedback, and just creating that trust environment.
There is a lot of change happening in the world at the moment. And you said to me that if you're good, like last time we caught up, I remember you saying to me, if you're a great leader, if you're constantly scanning the environment, and you need to pick up what's applicable to you and what's not to you. I'm like, I think my toxic trait as a leader, sometimes I'm trying to get better at it, is seeing the new shiny ball off to the side and going and running after it and going, well, that's exciting. In a world where there's like AI and there's all these amazing new technologies and opportunities popping up left, right, and center, how do you as a leader remain steady in trying to achieve your strategy without constantly trying to tweak it?
Yeah, I think you've got to stay steady, and you only tweak it when you think it's not working. So a lot of the new developments that are coming through, like in the world at the moment, AI, and there's other technological advancements that are probably closer to CODAN.
Yep.
You really need to assess what the impact may be, and if it's a large impact, you have to react.
Yep.
If it's a small impact that you got a medium time frame, like a 3-year time frame, I think you can start planning for it. But there's no sharp right turns, in the business we're in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The only sharp right turns I've experienced as CODAN is if you get a geopolitical issue like in Sudan, where it just shuts the country down.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a sharp right turn. But I think that's important. And the scanning piece comes back to reading. I reckon the Fin Review's a great read every morning. I reckon the Wall Street Journal's a great read every morning. I think the Economist is a great read, and I reckon the McKinsey articles that come through are good reads. So that's my scanning
Every day.
because I get the summary reports from the Economist and McKinsey.
Yeah.
Fin Review I read all the time, and the Wall Street Journal probably once a week because we do so much work there. So that's what I use for scanning. And I only scan. I don't read them. I just pick up the headlines. I think that might be applicable. Or that might be applicable.
Yeah.
Avid follower of LinkedIn of our competitors.
Yep.
And emerging trends.
Yep.
And it's so easy. It just pops up, and I'll decide. But I think there's probably at least 30 to 45 minutes a day I would spend scanning
per day.
Yeah. Most of the times in the morning.
Yeah.
But every day.
So, again, organisations are going through a lot of change, right? And we spoke earlier about the power of planning and creating a path and putting a lot of time and effort in. And as you're sitting there and you're explaining your method and putting a lot of time in there, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of time and a lot of planning that goes into your personal life more so than anything. I completely understand the business aspect. But it brings me to the Abraham Lincoln quote, which is, if you gave me 8 hours to cut down a tree, I'd spend 6 hours sharpening the saw, right? And I think that's kind of the methodology you're working to, is to spend a lot of time planning. So when you're setting up a project or a large change program or a business transformation piece for your organisation, what emphasis do you place on that front end, like the creation of the project and the enablement of the project?
Yeah, a lot, but probably something that will surprise you. I'm only there to say this is the railway tracks.
Yep.
And you tell me what the measures of success are and what success looks like.
Yep.
I'm not there to micro plan.
Yeah.
I think you need to give the empowerment to the team on the how.
Yeah.
Right? Senior leaders need to give the boundaries and really educate and listen what success is in this space. Senior leaders aren't about parachuting in and saving the world.
Yeah.
And if you're doing that, that means you've done something wrong somewhere else. Now, I would say that 15 years ago or 10 years ago, I was a parachuter. I was a professional paratrooper, right? Yeah. And I learned very quickly that's just not sustainable.
Is there a size of business, though, that goes with that if you're a small business?
Listen, I think if you're a small business and you're the owner-operator, you're going to be the paratrooper most of the time, right? And you really got to pick that half a day a month to sort of go and sit somewhere and sort of plan your way out of things. And that's what I see when I'm mentoring small business owners, is that they really need that time just to think and plan.
Yeah.
But when they do and get it right, it's amazing. It's like a snowball. It's just beautiful to see. But I think we place a lot of time in just getting those initial thoughts right.
it's on that. You said half a day a month or a day a month or whatever it might be. What does your planning cycle look like? Do you say you scan the market every morning. Do you set aside in your calendar? Do you actually set aside thinking time, planning time, or
No,
no?
I'm not that prescriptive.
No.
Like I said, I spend a lot of time on aircraft.
Yes.
And that's the time on, like I have a notebook.
Yeah.
Not like, like a red notebook.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably could go back to, the last 50 days and I'll just read them and highlight it and see, what's changed and, then read stuff and read the strategy document, look at the finances. And I use that as a collective planning.
Yeah.
Right. And I think if you're doing, a couple of hours a month, you're doing well.
Yeah, great. You said before the train tracks, right? My job is to sort of set the train tracks and let everyone else get to the destination. I like that analogy. In all your experience, though, you would see that what they're building, the team is building to get to the final destination. You would see it and you would go, oh, I don't necessarily believe that's the right way to do it, right? How do you not parachute in at that point? How do you hold yourself back?
I think if they're still going to achieve the measure of success, let them go.
Yeah, okay.
Because, unless it's not a timing issue, a budgetary issue, and they've just thought about it differently than you or I have, I don't think it's a wrong thing.
But if you think you can alleviate some pain, or you actually see something that's sticking out that you go,
you just make a recommendation.
Yeah.
You wouldn't make an instruction.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it takes a lot of experience to be able to not jump in at that point.
And I think also you talk about culture and trust. You got to trust that these guys are going to deliver. Yeah. And I guess that's my point. Yeah.
Typically, they're smarter than when you're hiring some really intelligent
100%.
human beings and get them to deliver. So one thing that's on the mind, and while we're talking about, always looking forward, which is something I know you do very well, looking forward now and just given your background, you were CE for 14 years, you would have gone, were you CE through the GFC as Detmold? Was that how would have been?
Yeah, I started in 2007 there.
2007, so you would have just been right on the cusp of that and felt that. What's your thoughts on this impending recession that everyone's it's on the tip of everyone's talking about?
Yeah, I'm not an economist, but my view is you've got to understand what's applicable for your business and yourself, because the media always makes things probably a little bit bigger than they are.
Yeah.
When you talk about interest rates, 30% of Australians own their own home.
Yeah.
And so there's my view that there is some hurt from a consumer sentiment perspective because people now aren't saving as much. So they're not saving because there's so many inflationary pressures out in the market. Your interest rate's gone up, your water bill's gone up, everything's gone up. So how do you save?
Exactly what we were talking about this morning.
You want to catch a flight somewhere, it costs double. So all those costs are up. So people now are really thinking, where do I spend my money? Yeah. So from a retail world and consumer world, I can see how there may be some pain in the economy. Yeah. From, if you're dealing with government departments or large defence departments or products that are more high-end where discretionary spend is an issue, you're probably going to be a bit protected. Yeah, okay. And I think that's where sort of CODAN sits a little bit for most of its product line. But definitely it is a market where people need to think about how they're going to use their funds, I would say. Yeah. But if I was in the consumer world or retail world, and I'm pretty sure they are, I'll be watching my supply chain intakes and I'll be watching all my input costs. Yeah, understanding your cost base and getting as much cash in the bank as you can. And I think was going to be my next question is what would you do or what are you doing or recommend leaders to do should this recession come soon? Yeah. So if I had to get my ruler out, I'll be looking at our forward forecasts. I would making a stab at revenue drops,
Yep.
and then reorganising the business for that revenue drop.
Okay.
So that revenue drop equates to this much of gross margin dollars, and this is what I need to do in my business to actually make money at these levels, and then decide, can you do anything differently? You know, how do you leverage other things in your business? But that's the readiness part of it.
Yeah.
You need to start thinking about that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it does rear its head, when do you think it would be? And in your sort of, because there's some talk of 12 months, 24 months, you know.
Yeah, I think with the amount of monetary policy that's around, I don't see it coming.
Okay.
Yeah. I think there's going to be pain.
Yeah.
And you're seeing some of that pain, but I don't see that with everything we've got in place globally. I can't see it hitting us.
Okay, that's exciting. But we won't.
Well, I'm not an economist.
Yeah, we won't quote you on that.
Yeah.
Families, I know something that's very fundamental to you.
Yeah.
And I'm much the same. So I'm going to pick your brain on this. How do we? I ask this question quite a lot. How do we manage? How do we go about realizing our visions, our personal visions of what we want to do with our business and where we want to take it, and the time and effort? And you say you travel a lot and all the above. How do we manage that as a person, as a human being, but also try to cultivate those loving relationships, right? And manage, place time and effort into family and our, wives and husbands and children.
Yeah, it's hard. It is hard. I'm lucky I've got an amazing wife, I must say. She's been part of the journey for a long, long time, and really she takes the brunt of the sacrifice, to be fair. And she's probably done more raising of the children than me.
Yeah.
So I think when you got the time, it's got to be quality time. And it's just a hard thing, right? But you got to work at it as a group. So
as a team.
As a team, yeah. So your family's a team, right? And everyone's got different skill sets in your team, and and they're the key things. I often, if there's a share price tank, like one of my sons might ring and say, "Oh, what's happened today, Dad?"
Yeah.
Or I said, "Oh, nothing, don't worry." Or "Are you okay, Dad?" It's all those things.
Yeah.
But I try and keep work away from my family and my home life.
Yeah.
I think that's an important delineation. And while you're there, just try and enjoy that time. But it's not easy. It's a juggle. It's a juggle every day of the week.
Oh, yeah, it is. I really struggle on this because my wife is part owner of this business, right? Like, because if you think about, I own the business, and my wife is naturally. So trying not to talk about work
it would be a bit different.
It is a bit difficult. But if you were to give yourself a score, I know you said your wife takes the brunt of it all. If you were to give yourself a score out of 10 on how you've managed your work-life balance, how would you rate yourself?
I would say I'll answer that over time. So if I probably went back 15 years, it probably would have been a 3 out of 10. I think then as the kids have got older, and I'll probably come up to around probably 6. I would hope the family would give me maybe a 7 to 8.
They're all sitting
now.
there. They're all turning the radio off right
now. So I hope they would give me that. But collectively, I think we do a good job. So my wife's highly vivacious. She's got the same energy as the person I met when I was 18. So and I think that keeps a lot of keeps us all up and about.
Do you when you go home, and again, this probably comes to the mental health question, do you switch off? Do you, does the laptop go in the bag, or does the laptop stay at the office? Like, what do you do?
No. At CODAN, we're a global business, so I had my first meeting at 5 a.m. this morning, right, with the US guys, and then it's very common that you have meetings into the evening.
Yeah.
The flexibility I have at CODAN today is we haven't got a lot of Australian stuff going on, so you have opportunities maybe to get to work by 9 or 9:30, and maybe do a school drop off every now and then. But no. I'm not saying it's a 24/7 role,
Mm.
but the whole family knows that because it's the global orientation. You got stuff early morning and late at night, and that's the way it is.
Absolutely. Now, I'm not going to keep you much longer.
Yep.
So I'm going to just ask a few quick questions before we jump into some quick fire questions towards the end. What excites you about the future? What is looking forward? You speak about it quite a bit.
Yep.
What does excite you about the future?
Oh, you know what excites me? And it's got nothing to do with... I'm really excited to see where my kids bring their lives, right? And really, hopefully, all the lessons learned they've got from my wife and I, pull them through and they can enjoy their lives and create their own brand and stuff.
Yep.
When I look at CODAN, I'll love to leave CODAN a better place than I got. So in the next 5-6 years, if it's much larger from an enterprise value, I think that'll be a tick. I'd love to see Carlton win the grand final because I'm a big Carlton supporter.
This weekend is
the Brisbane Lions
Brisbane
game. So and hopefully you can keep enjoying yourself with your family and friends. It's not too hard. Like to see my mum get to 90. She's 83. It's just some of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Your dad's still around?
No. He passed quite a while ago. Yeah. So.
But
he's always on my shoulder. He was someone that you never die wondering in what he had in his mind. So
well, you said, you said Rodney played a big part, but yet your dad, as well, was the major force. What is that little? What is that little voice on your shoulder saying to you?
I think try and be. My dad used to say, hang around with people that are better than you because you'll learn more. Right. Don't become a rank and file kind of person. And then he spoke his mind, right? He was blunt, and I think you don't have to be blunt as bad as he was, but you need to have a level of authenticity and honesty when you're dealing with people. Yeah. Right. If you haven't got that, I reckon you're wasting your time.
Yeah, what's the point? Well, you're probably not going to be in the leadership roles, right? If you're not authentic, if you're not... if there's no transparency, you're more likely to fall away. So what about you personally, and what are your personal aspirations for the future? You said you talked about your kids and all that, but what about you personally?
I think if I look forward, maintain health, I like developing properties, continue that
property space.
I think once you start getting good ASX experience and you're a proven performer, hopefully in the future I can influence businesses at a board level. So that's.
Well, you don't think you've got enough? You're on boards now.
Oh, very, very minor ones.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm talking about other ASX.
ASX. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, very good. Rightio. So we're going to jump into some quick fire questions just to round off the podcast. We're big readers here in creating Synergy and SynergyIQ. What is something that you're reading right now?
I'm not an avid reader because I spend a lot of my time scanning, but one book I'm looking at reading is called Range from Dave Epstein.
Range.
And it's really a story or a study about specialisation versus generalisation as a professional.
Beautiful. What's one self-development book or a leadership book or anything like that you feel that stands out? Like one that you've probably gifted more than anything else?
The 5 a.m. Club by Rob Sharma.
The 5 a.m. Club. When I was in your office, you had one on your desk. There was a yellow book. What was that one?
Leadership from the Future.
Leadership from the Future.
Yeah.
You said that. You also mentioned to me that was a good... That's
a good read, and that's really a read that governs how I like running business.
Yeah, okay. Leadership.
The 5 a.m. Club was more about personal development,
Yeah.
fitness and all that sort of
Getting
stuff.
up at 5 a.m.
Yeah, getting
Do
up
you?
at 5. I did it for a long time, and I felt fantastic.
I struggle in the morning. And actually, I said this the other day to someone. They're like, Dan, you got to get up at 5 a.m. You got to go for your runs. You got to do this. Like, I struggle. I'm not a morning person. They said, you become a morning person.
Do.
Yeah.
It's just a clarity of thought. It's just not go for a run. You're supposed to meditate. You're supposed to read.
Yeah.
You're supposed to get yourself ready for the day, and then you got to do some exercise.
Yeah.
So it's the balance.
So you followed that book? Like you did the meditation and everything with it?
Yeah. So I didn't really meditate. I just sat there in quiet time.
Be in your own thoughts.
Yeah, be in your own thoughts.
Do you spend much time? I'm diverging off this question or these questions already. Do you spend much time? You talked about thinking. Do you spend much time just sitting and thinking?
Yep.
And
I'm a deep thinker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like daily or?
Oh, when you're in the car, when you're on your chair.
Switch off all devices.
When I'm watching those poor YouTube videos that everyone hates. But, just mind-numbing. So you think about a lot of things. Yeah.
What's one lesson that's taking you the longest to learn?
Not everything needs to be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you on that one.
Yeah.
If you could have coffee with one historical or current figure, who would it be?
I think Barack Obama.
Yeah, he's probably one of the most.
Yeah, I think for me, first coloured president, did a lot of good things. 2 terms. I just liked his style in a lot of ways, and his foreign policy was strong. Maybe some of his internal policies lacked.
Yeah.
So it was probably more of a discussion on how do you bring people along for the journey.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So
he's the way he taught, like his communication skills are phenomenal. What's some of the best advice that you've ever received?
Hire for attitude.
Hire for attitude.
Train for skill.
Train for skill.
And I would never swap it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
I love that. What's one habit that holds you back the most?
Maybe the overthinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is your biggest skill is also your biggest
that's right.
kryptonite?
Yeah.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
Fake people.
Yeah.
Can't stand them.
True.
Can't stand
What do you do? Just wipe them out of your life?
I just don't talk to them.
What does a fake person look like though?
People that just lack authenticity.
Yeah.
You can't trust them. It's people that are self-absorbed. Yeah. So
it's always about them.
Yeah. So if I meet one at a function, I turn off. I got a really bad trait of doing that, and then my wife just kicks me under the table. So
you stare into the corner.
Yeah, the tolerance level is like binary. It's not.
Well, I'm glad we've been able to keep a conversation. If you could pay someone to do one of your chores, what would it be? What chore would that be?
You know what? I don't do a lot of chores.
Don't you?
No, but I don't like the gardening, and I'll pay the gardener.
Yeah, you pay the gardener. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's one word you absolutely hate?
Is hate.
Hate. You don't like the word hate?
Oh, I
I hate the word hate.
I cannot. That is such a strong word.
It is.
It's such a strong word, and I can't. I've never experienced that you could go to that level with somebody, or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. I remember someone saying to me early in my life, actually saying that if you say you hate someone, then you're almost at the point of wanting death on them.
Yeah.
And I've always taken it that way. It's like, I hate that person.
Yeah.
So I get the team pay me out a lot here actually because I say, apparently best friends with everyone. So I think like that's just my nature is just always, everyone's a great person. We're collecting people in our lives. That's what we're doing. What's the first? This is a bit of a creepy question. What's the first thing that you would do if you became invisible?
That's a tough question, right? I would love to sit in on a cabinet meeting.
A cabinet meeting?
A cabinet meeting like for the Australian government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would love that?
Yeah. And just trying to understand what they talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Listen, that question can go a lot of places,
No,
you know.
but I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I just think about, are you coming from the position of you want to hear what they're saying because you don't think it's up to scratch, or
No, it's just a position of interest.
it's just an interest? Yeah.
Yeah, you could say you like to, go and sit in on the Bigfoot Association, see if they exist, you know, stuff like that. But no, it comes from a position of interest.
Of what is actually going on?
What is actually going on?
Yeah. Now you say it, there's the conversations around, the relationship between China and the US. I would really like to understand what's happening there.
And you like to understand if it's real.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I did a lot of business in China. When you read the Chinese papers and you read the Aussie papers, they're completely different.
Oh, really?
What's actually going on in country sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
Are we more focused on them than what they're focused on? Like,
sometimes I did get that impression, but I'm not a expert on these issues, but I did get that impression on what some of the media rhetoric was here wasn't what was playing out over there. Yeah.
I think for us, we've had Christine Zeitz on the show, and a few people from the defence market. It's that trade route, which is the one thing that's probably going to concern Australia the most out of all of this.
Correct.
Which obviously will affect share price and everything that goes with it as well, right? So, what's one of the most useless talents that you have?
Useless talents. Useless talents. That's a hard one.
Playing Brushka.
That is probably it. Yeah. I can play Italian cards. That is a useless talent. I might have to take a pass on that one.
Yeah.
What's a common answer?
Oh, everyone's got.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a random. I can't even remember now what people would what they're saying.
Yeah.
I like the question because it get like the Brishkler one is one. It's like I can play Italian cards, but it holds me like it gets nowhere.
Yeah.
Right, my favorite question of the whole podcast. What's your favorite? What's your best dad joke?
Okay. My boss rang me this morning.
Yeah.
And asked me to have a great day, and I've decided not to go to work.
Well done.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, look, thank you so much for your time and taking the time out of obviously a very busy schedule and spending it here and sharing your journey and your thoughts and your experiences. We really appreciate it, and kudos to you and your career and everything that you've achieved. I speak on behalf of everyone. It'd be really interesting seeing your career moving forward and what it all looks like. So well done.
Thank you. Thanks for the time. I really enjoyed it.
No worries. Thanks, everyone. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening to the podcast all. You can check out the show notes if there was anything of interest to you and find out more about us at synergyiq.com.au. I am going to ask, though, if you did like the podcast, it would absolutely mean the world to me if you could subscribe, rate, and review. And if you didn't like it, that's all right too. There's no need to do anything. Take care, guys. All the best.